Before we begin, I'd like to draw attention to a website that we have set up which supports the survivors of this horrible abuse. To anyone who watched the BBC's documentary and think they may have been impacted in a similar way, please know that you're not alone. There is now a community here to support you. Our website can be found at www.harrodssurvivors, so 2 S's, harrodssurvivors.com. There is also a telephone number attached to that website to assist anyone who requires or feels a need for assistance. That telephone number, 0203 468 0493. There you will find ways to contact us confidentially, and we must stress that word as all the processes that we go through today, confidentially, to know that you are not alone. We believe that the system not only enabled, but potentially and allowed, to a knowing extent, the widespread sexual abuse of the survivors that we represent. I have many years of practice, and I have never seen a case as horrific as this. This case combines some of the most horrific elements of the cases involving Jimmy Savile, Jeffrey Epstein, and Harvey Weinstein. Savile, because in this case, as in that, the institution, we say, knew about the behaviour. Epstein, because in that case, as in this, there was a procurement system in place to source the women and girls, as you know, there are some very young victims of this, for abuse. And Weinstein, because it was a person at the very top of the organisation who was abusing his power. We will say it plainly, Mohamed Al Fayed was a monster.
I was subjected to AIDS and STD testing without consent, and now believe in hindsight I was checked for my purity. We would be sent to see Al Fayed because he had a job for us to do. It was always more of a friendly chat than actual work. But then these private meetings turned into more. A forced kiss, his hands gripping your face to his lips, or pulling you down on his lap, where his hands were free to explore any part of your body that he wished. These incidents lasted seconds, but the fear instilled left me paralysed. Al Fayed brushed off these moments like they had never happened. But I was always reminded not to mention them to anyone. He would know if I did. I had never experienced anything like it before. I was so young, I didn't know what to do and how to deal with it. I felt such fear and some sick loyalty as his employee. It was an era where women were still the underclass in the working world. One night I was asked to stay late. This was to be my final night. All of MAF's, or Mohamed Al Fayed's planning and manipulation were to come to fruition. He summoned me up to his private apartment on the pretext of a job review. I was escorted by one of his security guards who ushered me into his private sitting room. The door was locked behind me. Al Fayed handed me a glass of champagne and told me to sit. Looking around, I saw his bedroom door partially open. There were sex toys on view. I felt petrified. I perched myself at the very end of the sofa, and then it came. Mohamed Al Fayed, my boss, the person I work for, pushed himself onto me. I fell to the floor with him still on top of me, but I managed to kick free and free myself. I ran towards the door. I told him I was meeting my father for dinner and he would be worried that I was late. He just laughed at me. He then composed himself and he told me in no uncertain terms that I was never to breathe a word of this to anyone. If I did, I would never work in London again, and he knew where my family lived.